what's the process look like to make this a profitable endeavor, but also be able to help people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a few things. Like talk about like if you want to look at marketing a product or service of any kind, are you the real deal? I mean, do you know what you're doing? So education's important. This is an area we know most advisors lack education. And quite honestly, some firms just flat out say advisors can't do it because they can't regulate it and they can't train them on it.
Interesting.
So that's thing number one. So if you've got the ability to get good training, which we hope we've put together some great training for advisors to know. And then the next piece is, is it marketable and profitable? Mm-hmm. How do you go to market with it? We know that there's 16 million kids in high school today. Mm-hmm. There's 4 million that graduate roughly each year, and 68.4% of those go right on to college.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Model FA podcast. I am joined by Joe Messenger. Joe, how you doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Awesome, brother. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining me here in the studio. You made the trip to Austin. You're here for the NAPFA conference, speaking tomorrow or Thursday, I believe.
Yep, this week for sure. Yep.
Awesome, man. What's the topic? What are you talking about?
Changing the approach to college funding advice and ending the student loan crisis.
Geez, tackling big problems. I feel like that's a good place for us to start. A lot of financial advisors, they've talked about college planning. Some of them even want to break into that to be able to help families that are college bound make those decisions. And then on the other side, you've got this huge mountain of student loan debt. I mean, where do you feel like the problem and the opportunity is for advisors in the college planning space?
I mean, I just think that the problem is getting so much more attention, even by mainstream media. I graduated college, for example, in 2000 from a state school, Penn State, and the all-in cost was around $10,000. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, 19, almost 20 years later, it's triple that.
Yeah.
The wages are fairly stagnant. So, and that ability to save for most parents hasn't really changed that much. And the ability to work and pay through school for kids like I did, took out some loans and worked my way through school and some scholarships. But
yep. I did an in-state school at Delaware, so yeah, a similar deal.
Yep. So, and then you got kids choosing to go to schools that are 2 to 3 times that amount. So that's compounding it, all without knowing what ultimately the result's going to be on the back end. And I think that's where people get way in over their heads with college and not realize what the result and what the outcome is going to be for a young adult.
So what's the solution in your mind? Is it just providing like more education to families so they understand like what they're entering into? Is it just trying to change the education system so they're providing better outcomes and making that more effective? Like where do you feel the bottleneck is right now, or maybe multiple bottlenecks? Yeah,
I think in general it's a very opaque process. So you've got families that really want what's best for their kids. You got kids that all they see is that they'll go see all the great schools that are out there, not realizing what the money impact is. So if we can make it more transparent and help them be informed consumers, just like many other things we do, people are going to have much better outcomes. And so we really feel our belief with what we're doing, we have an advisory firm, but we've kind of really doing a lot more to raise the bar in college funding advice across the country, because it is so complex, like many of the things we do as advisors, that once you actually understand how financial aid works and policies, but understanding with 2,800 schools, one right next to another one may have the same sticker price, but what you pay out of pocket could be a tenth of that.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, I run my own wealth management firm too. I did financial planning for a number of years. And one of the areas that always scared me was college planning, because there is just so much information. And I always felt like college planning was just a way to trick people into getting them into a room and selling them some like IUL or annuity or something just to make a commission. Mm-hmm. But it seems like you've created some really good software and solutions and just a process around helping advisors get this information. Are you finding that advisors are receptive to wanting to help college-bound families with this information? Are you noticing resistance? Like, where do you feel we're at as an industry to help kind of solve this problem?
Yeah, I think advisors want to help. And interestingly, everybody that shows up to my sessions when I give talks, they themselves are, in their 40s. They're Gen X. They're right smack in the middle of that. So
interesting.
They are within that world. And so they're trying to figure it out for their own kids. And then they're like, oh, every parent I know also is going through this.
Yeah.
And I, as a financial planner, have no idea how it works.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing to me. We're talking about $100,000 to $300,000 investment per student.
And we're not
not
even educated to provide advice on that.
Yep. There's no training. There's 2 pages in the CFP curriculum.
Wow.
So, for us, we've deconstructed it and we've got a 10-hour course on it. So obviously there's a lot of layers to the onion of figuring out how do you comprehensively help families. But you mentioned a good point about this kind of the black eye on college funding has always been these insurance folks that nothing that there's anything wrong with selling insurance, but people that instead of providing a good service, they're saying just cram all your money in here and it solves all your problems.
Exactly.
And the reality is when we look at the formulas, what we see, the mass affluent Gen X communities that make, 200,000 plus that advisors, CFP professionals work with, their income drives them out. So putting their money into some product doesn't really serve them well. It just ties up their money and gets a big commission for an agent. So we're all about actually helping them through a process, bring the stress and anxiety and fear down. So it's not only a great way from the money aspect, but you really have to connect with people and understand where they're coming from, because mom and dad, they haven't even had the conversation. It's shocking to me. They're 45, 50 years old, extremely successful, and they have never had the conversation about, what does paying for college look like for our 3 kids?
Isn't that pretty insane if you think about it? You have these kids. The kids are expected to go to school for 4 years. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you've got this open-ended debt on the back end of this if you're not fully funding it with a 529 or some other, investment vehicle, which most people aren't. And then you're just not having a conversation about that. And your advisor isn't proactively bringing it up and having a conversation with you because they're not trained on it because it's, too, quote unquote complex. So what process would help a financial advisor become proficient or become an expert in this area so that we can provide better advice as an industry on this problem? Can you talk me through like how you've put something together, or what type of success you've had with that?
Yeah, I think we've got to take it head on, because one of the things there's 2 things that we hear commonly in the industry is, there's only one way to pay for retirement and lots of ways to pay for college.
Yep.
And I tell advisors, like, that is not helpful for somebody that is staring down the barrel of a $100,000 to $300,000 bill for 3 kids.
Yeah.
So it's just not helpful anymore, and they will do whatever it takes to get their kids and do what's best for them.
Yep.
So we, as we have to figure out better ways to help them and bring help them take the stress and anxiety and fear out of this process. And you got to start when they're freshmen and sophomores in college. So beginning with, people think, college saving is obviously the best way to get there, but only 17% of people that have kids even have a 529 plan.
Yeah.
Or a saving strategy.
Yeah.
So, but yet the number one financial concern of study after study is how are we going to pay for college for our kids? There's a disconnect there. And then we've got advisors that are going to say, okay, you just had your 1-year-old, save $783 a month and you'll be able to go to a state school in 18 years.
Yep.
And they're like, well, we've got 100, So this talking them through not only how to save for college, but how to pay for college. It's a paying for college conversation, includes walking them through financial aid opportunities. Are they need-based candidates or are they not? And if they're not, let's focus on schools that give scholarships. Because some of our top universities, for example, they just do not have scholarships. About 300 of them, they don't have academic scholarships.
Is the answer ever like you haven't saved enough and it doesn't make economic sense for your kids to go to college? Is that ever a conversation that an advisor would be expected to have? Because I know parents are going to have strong opinions generally about whether they want their kids to go to college or not, or the kid could have strong opinions about it. Yep. Do you think a financial advisor, that is their place if they notice that the economic gap is so large from what the parent was able to save and what college costs, to say, hey, it's not in the cards? I feel like a lot of advisors might be pretty scared by that. Do you feel like that's an appropriate thing to say, or do you just try and plan around that potential reality?
I would say as advisors, you need to get more comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. You can't shy away from these things if you really want to be of great service to your folks. Because like you said, it's helping them see into the future. And what's the outcome if you go here? If you go here, how do we pay for all 4 years down to the penny?
Yep.
And what's the student loan and the resulting student loan payment?
Yeah.
And that's where we feel like we kind of pick up where other softwares leave off with our College Aid Pro, because it's helping them see, because they're like, okay, they got in, they're like, we'll figure it out. It's like the hope is not a strategy kind of conversation.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
We need to figure out what does all 4 years look like, because it's not a 1-year proposition, it's 4.
Yep.
And most kids don't even get done in 4. So it's helping them understand, if you go here, you're going to have $80,000 in debt and you're going to have a $900 a month payment. You're 23, you're trying to start your life. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So at least laying out the options so they realize what the financial consequences are, instead of just blindly entering into a decision and saying, we'll figure this out later. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, like, how do we help them see into the future? And that's where the rubber really hits the road. Because I think very few advisors probably meet with 17-year-olds like we do in our practice. But that's after we've already talked to mom and dad. Mm-hmm. But one of the first things before I even show them, some of their schools they're looking at, I'll just ask them, what's the most amount of money you've ever made in a month?
It's a good question.
And it sinks in. They're like,
$5,
$300, a really motivated kid.
Yep.
I'm like, great. So if you go to this school, XYZ University, you're going to have a $900 a month payment. And they're like, wow. That's where things rubber hits the road, and kind of that uncomfortable conversation. It's good cop, bad cop with parents, but their parents could tell them the exact same thing. And anybody who has teenagers knows this, but if it comes from somebody else's mouth, it sounds completely different.
Yeah.
So, it's just being that third party.
Got it.
So
what is your, what's your opinion around, just before we get into kind of the solution in greater detail, like what's your opinion about college and just the general sense of this problem? Like, do you feel strongly about the fact that people should go to college and be educated and take out this debt, even if it is economically feasible for them to do that? Do you feel like the system is doing a good job of kind of training up America's next generation to be productive humans? Or where do you stand, I guess, with your belief in the education system?
So there's a couple things in there. I used to, and we still do, have a ton of information about the value of doing like a community college for 2 years and transferring.
Yep.
The value of doing a trade, and the shortage in trade. I talked to a guy in the airport last week, and he said, I work in Ohio, and I work with electrical electrical folks. He's like, I could place 10,000 of them tomorrow.
Wow.
There's such a shortage.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the trades need bodies like crazy. If you go and be a plumber right now or an electrician, you can charge $200 an hour, and there's like a backlog of people who are ready to hire you.
Yeah, there's the supply and demand there's huge. So, just driving here from the airport in Austin, I saw like 17 bridges under construction in a 10-mile drive. So,
for sure.
It's crazy. So those jobs are out there, the community college thing's out there. But at the end of the day, the communities most of us serve as CFPs, we live in nice little bubble communities where everybody makes a couple $100,000.
Yep.
And those are the clients we want because they have resources, and they just envision that traditional 4-year college experience for their kids.
Yeah.
So instead of me telling them, you can't go,
yeah, I
just say, let's understand your trade-offs here. Let's understand what that looks like. And if you don't know what you're going to do at all, if you have no clue, we're not going to send you to Carleton for $72,000 a year. You're going to go to community college for a year or take a gap year.
Yeah.
So it's just helping them be informed around it. And again, showing them that result.
I like it.
So that's kind of my, I used to be like, yeah, we can do these things. You can do these courses in high school and go to community college. And the parents are like, well, no, we want our kids to go to like Clemson or UNC or Duke. So it's not our job to make that decision.
Yeah.
It is our job to
facilitate options and facilitate discussion around it.
Yep. Okay. So it's just helping them understand, we've got options. Are they open to those things? Some parents are.
Yeah.
Some parents really are. They're like, yeah, they don't know I don't know if they're exactly ready for, a big university yet, but, if they spent some time, get some of the gen eds done, get used to college. So some parents are more open to it than others, but a lot of them, it's just they envision that great experience, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
That's what I think my parents envisioned for me too.
I don't think it's on us to project our values onto the client. I was just curious. Yep. What has been your experience with, I guess, building client relationships using college planning as a tool to help people make better decisions? Have you found that you introduce college planning, people are really receptive, they latch onto it, you have a couple meetings and then become wealth management clients of your firm? Have you found it to be more of kind of a one and done project-based service? Where are you seeing this fit for today's advisor?
Yeah, I think so. We've evolved over time, kind of how we've approached this. One is because of bandwidth. As we've grown, we've been around 10 years now. So, our current clients are more important than our next client. That's what I say, because they're very valuable to us. So when we started, we did standalone services. We would do like a $500 college affordability session. And over the years, just because of capacity, we've just kind of said, we want to make sure that we're doing financial planning for college-bound families, not just college planning.
I like it.
Because that grows into, like you said, the more important relationships. And we've really just discovered that to really serve college-bound families, a lot of times it's about trade-offs. So we'll walk them through, we do what we call a foundations plan for a small upfront fee. I call it our dating phase. It's usually 3 to 4 meetings. At the end of that, we're going to propose ongoing investment management.
Okay.
Or retainer business.
Got it.
That's kind of how we've developed it. It works well for us because we're definitely at a point where there's clients that we have no desire to work with. So we can find that out though in a 6-week relationship instead of having to get them commit
a couple years and then they end up churning out or you end up firing them because they're not a good fit.
Yeah. So those trade-offs, I think you have to nail it with college planning. But like when somebody comes back and they say, they got into American University and we really want to do that for them, I say, all right, well, let's figure it out. It's full
Okay.
price, but
Yeah.
let's talk about what you can cash flow each year. So can you increase your cash flow to this by $500 a month? And maybe that means we reduce your 401k down to just the match for these couple years, but then you got to put it in their plan, but then it bumps back up later, right?
Yeah.
So people were like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. Like, well, no, think about when college is done, and then they're going to save an extra 25 grand a year
Yeah, they're gonna have
into
extra
their plans for 10, 15 years. But people love that, seeing that trade-off, and they're like, will you work an extra 2 years? And they're like, absolutely, I'll do that if it means we can send her to the college of her dreams. And other people say, hell no, I'm done at 50.
Yeah.
Like there's literally
It's just a black and white decision for them at that point.
Yeah, so like you were saying, like it's not our job to project,
Yep.
but it's just have that good open dialogue and feedback. And one of the things about doing college planning, the ability to break down barriers in a discovery meeting it's just not that difficult.
Yeah.
People always ask, like, how do you open conversation? They're like, well, here's all our money. We got this in 529s. We got this controllers down, grandpa and grandma. I was like, I just go, whoa. We're going to get to the money. Obviously, you're in a financial planning office. But let me learn a little about you and your college experience first. What do you mean? Well, where'd you go to school? So you're learning their alma mater. What did you go for? What do you do now? Is it even related? Because you're getting context around how they're forming
how they're thinking, their mindset
college.
around it. Yeah. Do they have a good experience? Do they have a bad experience? So,
Did mom and dad pay for it? Did you take loans? Were you part-time? So you really get this context, but the difference between mom and dad, their paradigm and how they're thinking about college can be completely different. One went to private school, all paid for by mom and dad. Another one, part-time, 7 years, loans, worked, 20 hours a week. So bringing those together is important.
it's probably hard too, because I'm sure that it doesn't line up all the time between the spouses. Like usually there's probably one person who was on one side and the other who was maybe on the other side. And I'm sure in some cases it does line up, but it's probably an interesting discussion to have during the discovery meeting. Hey, Model FAs, I know that you're enjoying this episode. I wanted to talk to you about a program that we're releasing. It's called the Model FA Accelerator. It is an intensive experience where we're going to bring you to Austin. We're going to help you solve the biggest problems in your practice. How to pick a niche, how to build a consistent marketing strategy, a sales process that actually converts, and how to scale it all up. So if you're curious about that, go to www.modelfa.com/accelerator. Book your call, and we'll talk to you soon. Yep. What do you position if you're an advisor? Let's say you want to get into college planning. What's the first step to becoming an expert in this and to have these types of discussions? And what's the process look like to make this a profitable endeavor, but also be able to help people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a few things. Like talk about, like if you want to look at marketing a product or service of any kind, are you the real deal? I mean, do you know what you're doing? So education's important. This is an area we know most advisors lack education. And quite honestly, some firms just flat out say advisors can't do it because they can't regulate it and they can't train them on it.
Interesting.
So that's thing number one. So if you've got the ability to get good training, which we hope we've put together some great training for advisors to know. And then the next piece is, is it marketable and profitable? Mm-hmm. How do you go to market with it? So we know that there's 16 million kids in high school today. Mm-hmm. There's 4 million that graduate roughly each year, and 68.4% of those go right on to college.
So there's a market.
You got a market, and it's a constantly renewing market.
Yep. That's
what we see too, and that's what we like as our firm. As we've grown, we're like, that's great, but we only want 150, 200 clients in Columbus, Ohio, and we can do that. We're about done.
Yeah, good to go.
But now, we want to take this, and we really feel like we've made an impact with these families, and we feel like advisors just have this opportunity to raise the bar on advice. As CFP professionals, like, how do we really doing this? Because telling them, we don't really do that, that's just not helpful anymore.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not going to solve the problem that we just outlined in the front end of this podcast.
And then the last piece too, kind of just to
fill it in.
So do you have education? Can you be the real deal? You know what you're doing. Is it marketable? Is there a market? Can it be profitable? And absolutely, it can be. And then the third piece is you need great tools to facilitate those conversations.
I think advisors would really value that, because obviously there's just some complexity around college planning in general, and most advisors aren't trained on, as we said, two pages in the CFP. So what does the tool that you've built do exactly? How does it work? How does it help the advisor provide relevant information to the prospect to get them interested in the next step?
Yeah, so College Aid Pro, I'd say it's two things. One is it's a community of advisors that are looking to serve families in this capacity. So we've got like a backdrop where advisors communicate with one another. We do biweekly roundtables. Topics are always changing, always evolving. So we think kind of that ongoing community vibe of advisors that want to serve this, just like there's estate planning focus and there's tax focus, there's lots of things you can focus on. This is just an area that's been, I think, overshadowed.
Okay.
And then the tool really helps advisors ask the questions they don't know they needed to ask.
Okay.
No, not a lot of advisors ask for an ACT score and a GPA.
Yeah, no,
for a
it's
16-year-old.
Not
right?
a common question.
Yeah, but we know that with our software, that is what's going to drive their scholarship estimates.
Okay.
So a lot of software and tools that are out there, there's great tools for families that are need-based financial aid candidates. And what we found is, in myself and my partners in this project, is that there just really wasn't a great tool for these mass affluent families that really, we're not financial aid candidates. So they go to the financial aid night at high school. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's like you don't
So
qualify.
they're like, well, great. So I'm not going to get Pell Grants and this and that. And those things are great. We need those programs. We need that service. But for the communities we serve, for the most part, it doesn't really help them.
Yep.
So ours is projecting merit scholarship, getting you what you need. And it also helps facilitate filling out financial aid forms on the back end. So all the questions and all the prompts you need to stay organized, ask the right questions, keep a school list. What's coming in the next evolution is even going to be triggered alerts that the advisor doesn't have to think about for deadlines, communication. Hey, an email. Hey, your application for XYZ University is due on 12/1. Don't forget. So some automation around that. Scholarship application deadlines are going to be part of our automated process in the backdrop. So it's really meant to be an end-to-end. And then on the back end, it's how do you actually pay for it and compare schools side by side. What's the net out-of-pocket cost? And then what's your gap?
Does the tool do that? Does it calculate the net out of pocket and all the expenses and forecast those things? It does.
Yep.
Okay.
So we project it. So there's a projected, which we found this year is usually within about a 90% accuracy. We usually try and lowball a scholarship because it's difficult. We've got a lot of good algorithms around it, but we've gotten very close. And we always say, you kind of want to over deliver under promise with those things because they're not guaranteed and it changes year to year. But it'll project it, and then we've got a good idea going in before they even step foot on a college campus tour.
Yep.
They've got an idea, okay, this is what I learned about this school. This is the way they do financial aid. I can go in with a profile, print it off from College Aid Pro and say, okay, they give scholarships to 35% of incoming freshmen, and their average ACT was a 28. We have a 32, so if we go here, we're going to have a very good chance of scholarships, for example. So that's the kind of power we put in the consumer's hands, and advisors can that financial aid piece is something that we're talking big money. We're talking $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 of scholarship money when you know how to do it.
Huge. I'm surprised high schools don't have access to something like this. Have you ever thought about providing the software to a high school who's advising on college admissions and things, or they don't care? I don't know enough about the
baby
process.
steps, Patrick. Baby steps.
Okay.
No, we do
You
want
would
to
think
get there.
that would be a critical aspect of what they would do with the college admissions process, but I guess it's not. So.
Yeah, and I think they're being pushed to have that conversation more and more. But as a college admission counselor or a college counselor at a high school,
You don't have the background.
you're not a financial planner.
Yeah.
Right? And financial planners are shying away from it. Counselors at high schools are shying away from it. So it's kind of like
That's why we're in this situation.
Build this tool and bridge that gap. And some employers that's another area that we're looking into is doing some more employer workshops and things like that across the country.
I'm trying to think.
Access them.
Who do you feel whose attention do you get with this offer? I mean, I'm assuming it's the parents who have the college-bound kids, and you get their attention and say, "Hey, we can help you make the right decision as it relates to your kid's college. Right now, you probably don't know exactly what you're doing, what it's going to cost, or where they should go, and we can just give you certainty around that." So I'm assuming that's the message that the advisors come into the marketplace with, and then it's where do I find these people and how do I find them profitably, so that I can put them in the software and give them the advice that they need and build a relationship with them. Have you found that that's best done just kind of networking in the community, working through high schools, working through like online marketing with Facebook and things like that? Have you noticed anything that would allow the advisor to consistently have these discussions so that they can leverage the software, leverage this process, and grow their business?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I think the one thing that we're trying to create a groundswell with is the big idea, which for us is college pre-approval.
Okay.
We think college should be pre-approved just like a mortgage. You need to know how you're going to pay for all 4 years down to the penny, including the loans and the payment. So it's kind of this idea, and I tell people, I'm like, if I walk into a bank and I throw up a picture, like I was in San Diego, so I threw up Tony Hawk's house. I was like, I don't have Tony Hawk's resources, and I don't need 2 pools, one of them that doesn't have any water because I don't skateboard. But I get laughed out of there because the banks doesn't think I can repay that. But we're having 16, 17-year-olds forced to make the decision, not understanding the outcome. So that kind of big idea that resonates a lot, and we're hoping that that is kind of the movement, that if we can get people to understand, the reason people get in trouble is because they get overcommitted.
Yep.
But if you have your budget going in, novel concept for college, like you actually have a budget and a maximum student loan amount that you're going to take, and that's kind of that idea. It's actually a very simple, we have a one-page college funding plan. So kind of that hook to get people to come in. If you want to work through your one-page college funding plan and get pre-approved for college, after a session or a workshop, that's the way to do it. So we've tried a lot of different things, obviously, over the years, but I really advocate for building strategic partnerships within your community.
Yep.
Because in our market, we've got a lot of market participants that just don't do what we do. So our best resources are ACT prep companies,
Okay.
career counselors, independent education consultants, lacrosse clubs, football camps, all of those organizations. You don't need that many of them.
Yeah.
All of those.
They're dealing with those families all the time.
Yeah. We're just, we're wash, rinse, repeat 2-3 times a year with each of these organizations. And it's 100
Good to go.
person each, 100 people come through. And I think the one part of what we're doing as far as success is what we've learned too, is that you have to be patient.
As with anything in life.
With anything, right? And I think people they raise their hand when they're ready with this.
Okay.
So somebody might come as with an 8th or a 9th grader, and they could totally benefit from working with us right away.
But the pain's just not strongly felt enough. Yeah.
Yep. So, I think a newsletter is probably the best tool we have.
For sure.
We send it out weekly. Some people, should do it monthly or weekly. And for us, it's weekly because there's all these trigger points. Just capturing that data, continue to add value, which I know is things you and I align on a lot.
100%.
And even if they don't work with us, if they forward it to a friend, that's awesome. Or they get good value and they can do it yourself better with our tools. So
for sure.
You got to have this abundance mentality.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to predict in advance who's going to be the ones that are going to resonate and attach with the offer and then come and become a client. But on average, enough people are going to have this problem. If you're relevant, you build intimacy and trust with them, a certain percentage are going to take you up on that project. They're going to go through the software. Some will see the need and they're going to become clients.
Yep.
What is your, I would say, I don't want to say success rate, but of the advisors in the community that participate in the community, they use the software, how many of them have fully adopted this into their practice? Are they using it as an arrow in the quiver? Have they completely rebranded and now they're just, doing financial planning for college-bound families? What are you seeing as far as adoption and people kind of circling around this pain point?
Yeah, kind of the models that we see are successful that we've just seen evolve as we've done this. People are at different points in their practice. So there's 3 things we would say. Be the expert, have an expert, or outsource it. So, be the expert. If you're new, we've got a lot of fee-only advisors that are just coming online and they're like, this is a great way, especially for a younger advisor, to go up market.
Yeah.
If they're 28, 29, now you can go talk to 45-year-olds about something that's really near and dear to them instead of just working with your 28-year-old that just had kids.
For sure.
So, you can find $500,000 to $1 million portfolios and really add value for them.
Absolutely.
Be the expert, make it your niche. So we've got people adopting that way. Another model that's been successful is people that, they're more experienced, more tenured in their practice. And they know that, based on studies, we're not really serving Gen X, but we're going to have to, because we also know that $30 trillion is going to transfer to Gen X over the next 15 years.
Oh, yeah. So
this Gen X wave that's coming, we also know that 66% of money leaves the firm when mom and dad, grandpa and grandma pass away. So what's your strategy to retain? So they're having a, 28, 30-year-old advisor right in the middle of mom and dad and their student, facilitate and be like the laser expert. Whereas, they're not going to know everything about options and trusts and all this stuff. But man, with this college stuff, they can get dialed in.
Yep. Kind of barbell the practice a little bit. You've got the older clients on the right side, the younger clients on the left. Okay.
Yeah, so if you got that younger advisor that you're kind of like, what do we have them do?
For sure.
That's been a really nice model for them to add value because they want to contribute and participate.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, I'm a brand new CFP. But this is an area, like I said, they really gravitate towards. So that's been successful too.
That's awesome. How long has the software been live? Is this something you've been running for years now? Did you just come out with the software and it was something else before, just more of an info product, a course, or kind of talk me through how the evolution of this whole thing and where it's at right now? Yeah,
it's kind of wild. I mean, we really came online late or in 2017. So really it's a couple years in. Started with education and training, and then we built out some marketing support.
Okay.
And then probably about a year in, we started working on the software.
Okay.
So we've been working on it for a year and a half. We just went live with it for sale in October of last year.
Oh, nice.
So now we've got about 100 advisors on it over the last few months, and so looking to.
Is it free for community members? Is it community plus software? How are you how have you structured it?
We've said just keep. My belief is keep it simple.
Okay.
Keep it low cost, high value.
Nice.
So we just say $69 a month. You can have unlimited cases.
Oh, cool.
For now, and we will continue to increase that price because we're investing a lot into the community and the product.
Oh yeah.
But for now, we're just following a lot of other technology companies and saying, if you want it now, you get lifetime pricing at this level. So
that's nice. That's a good deal. Mm-hmm. I got to get with the guys on my team so they can sign up.
Yeah.
I would, but I suck at financial planning now because I do too much marketing and sales and everything else.
Yep.
So
yep.
That's awesome, man. You're solving a really big problem for a market that needs the help, and you're training up advisors to be able to get on board with that mission and to not only get on board with it and help people, but to increase their income and grow their practice in an area that has historically been hard to penetrate. I mean, that's one thing that advisors have struggled with, and I think why a lot of them haven't focused on that Gen X market is it's hard to find a pain point that's salient enough to get them to take action.
Yep.
And I feel like college planning is one of those things where, for the right person, you're selling a painkiller and not a vitamin. If they're actually going through that problem, they're going to take that and they're going to be like, wow, this is a painkiller for me. I'm going to take my medicine and I'm going to become a client. So
yeah, I just say there's very few things within financial planning that have a deadline and a benefit.
That's a good point.
Taxes you got to do every year. You never have to do financial planning, right?
Nope. Yeah.
Because you just wake up and everybody's looking for the 64-year-old with the 1.5 million.
Yep.
The liquidity event. But if you can catch them now, what we see in our practice is you can really solve that. Like I said, it's a constantly renewing market.
Life, I'm sure.
Deadline and a benefit. I mean, and you crush it with value in the first year or two.
Oh yeah.
Because you're helping them with what's the most important thing to them? Their kids.
Yep.
I would venture to guess most advisors don't even know their clients' kids' names.
They absolutely do not.
So, it's a really great way to build deep relationships. I mean, what are the gifts we send? We send graduation gifts. We send a blanket for the college they're going to.
Nice.
Like, how much does that hit home?
That's just super.
Little things like that we're able to do and scale. It's just like, who's all graduating? What blankets we send in? So things like that, or mugs, or just stuff like that.
Awesome, man. All right, so we've got basically a software program, a community offer that's reasonably priced for advisors that are looking to grow in the Gen X market. What are you thinking about the evolution of this whole thing? Are you trying to layer, marketing on top? Are you just trying to make the best product you can possibly make and give it to the advisor so that they can facilitate the process? Like, where do you feel like the evolution is of this whole thing?
Yeah, so what we're working on now is solidifying a somewhat of a templated website, but a white label templated website for college planning of your practice. It doesn't replace your website.
Okay.
But it'll have calculators like a scholarship search, like an expected family contribution estimate.
Nice.
So a couple free calculators with calls to action for the parent. So if people say, where do I go? Go to, Capstone Wealth Partners /college planning, to go to our college planning page and, get it on your website. But it's got, it'll have the lead magnet, a little lead nurture sequence.
Nice.
And the most important thing, I think, a template for a good newsletter. So, giving some information, some blogs that are ghostwritten, and you can pepper in your own, but we want to just get folks, give them the tools they need to be successful. Because one of the things that breaks my heart is people say, it didn't work. I'm like, well, you didn't even do it for a full year.
Yeah, you really got to go.
Right.
You got to go in on it.
Yeah.
You can't just dip your toe in the water and be like, I tried for 3 weeks and I didn't get any leads. And none of those leads actually gave me any money. It's like, okay, let's be adults here. Let's work for a full year, 2 years, and then it snowballs.
Yeah, build trust. And I think advisors that have the most success, like they really have a guttural passion for helping these types of families that they know are experiencing this pain. And they're like, man, we really get to help them. And that comes through. You can't just be about money.
You got to commit too. I mean, what I've seen with a lot of advisors, they want to do all things and kind of be all things to all people. And it's great if you want to be an expert in a lot of different areas of the business. The problem is if you don't focus your marketing, if you don't focus your attention, then you're not going to be known for anything. So I think one of the reasons why you've been really successful with college planning is you've just decided to be known for college planning.
Yep.
And you're not here talking to me about, well, I also do retirement planning and I help with executive compensation. It's like, no, I do college planning. That was the whole episode and that's all I do and that's who I help. And I feel like that is what advisors need to really take from this is like, if I can latch onto something and solve a real problem, there's an addressable market and I can give them a solution that's going to get them to the next level. Well, I mean, that's going to help me grow my business.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, it
Awesome,
does
man.
take time. You got to keep growing those relationships in the community, and it takes time to. You can't just walk into a high school and say, "Hey, I want to do your financial aid night." That's not how it works.
No.
But those strategic partners, those folks they'll give you all the leads you ever need.
Awesome, man. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for coming to Austin. Obviously, good luck on the presentation at the NAPFA conference. And where should people find you, the listeners, if they want to get more information on the software, the solution, the process, all the stuff related to college planning?
Well, for the next 3 days, you can find me at a barbecue joint in Austin.
Getting the meat sweats going?
Yeah, I'm going to get some meat going. But other than that, collegeaidpro.com is probably the best place to find us. CapstoneCollegePartners.com is our education resource, and anybody that's an FPA member, you can find us through their portal as well. So Financial Planning Association.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, find us online. CollegeAidPro.com is probably the number one place to go.
Sounds good. Joe, thank you so much for coming in and being on today's episode, and I'll look forward to hopefully having you on again in the future.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.